Magandang umaga po sa lahat muli. Special welcome again to our brethren from other churches who are here early for the Bible Teachers Retreat. At sa aming Sunday School, we are addressing the subject of our distinctives, and that song we just sang was, as explained by Brother Jerry, ay kinatha ni Richard Baxter, and Richard Baxter is one of the eminent Puritans of his day, and so I thought it fitting that we should sing one of the hymns of a Puritan, and even in that hymn you can see what Puritans were most occupied with. Yan ang ating bagong section ngayon sa ating pag-aaral. We are studying our distinctives, and we are doing so by looking at various categories, by representing it like a triangle, starting from the base, what we share with the widest spectrum of professing Christians being Orthodox. So the fact of God, the fact of Jesus Christ. We share that even with Catholics and Eastern Orthodox churches, and that means they are Orthodox themselves. But then we rise higher. We studied evangelical distinctives, those that pertain to salvation by grace. But still, we rise higher by looking at the Reformed perspectives, and that Reformed perspective or distinctive is focusing on the solas of the Reformation because they deepen our understanding of grace. So all Reformed Christians are evangelical, but not all evangelicals are Reformed in that sense, dahil while they believe in salvation by grace, they do not want to explore further or deeper the issue of grace. Reformed Christians do. We want to explore deeper the issue of grace, what grace really means, and we summarized it by the 5 solas of the Reformation. Well, today we will begin a new section, and that is the Puritan distinctives, and then we will conclude, God willing, in the Baptist distinctives, where we will look at those distinctives that make us Baptist. And you can see na it's narrowing down because as we rise higher to the distinctives, we share it with less and less churches. And so by the time we end, I hope we are able to identify ourselves by the distinctives we hold. Now, as I've said, we will begin with a new section after our study of Orthodox, Evangelical, Reformed distinctives. We begin our study with Puritan distinctives. But before we go to the distinctives themselves, we need to know what the Puritans were. So in this study, it is more or less an introduction to the Puritans. I know that many of you already know, but not all may know who the Puritans were and why in the first place we are making their distinctives also our distinctives. Why differentiate Puritan distinctives? But natin iniiba at ibinubukod ang Puritan distinctives. Now, the Puritans, most of them anyway, were Reformed, yet again, just like Reformed explores more deeply the implications of grace, now the Puritans would explore more deeply the application of Reformed theology. So ito ay pag-aaral lang ng kanilang history. Who were the Puritans? They were the heirs of the Reformation and were Reformed in theology. Ibig sabihin, mga second, third generation sila after ng mga Reformers. The Reformers, starting with Martin Luther, 1517, he started the Reformation, or what became the Reformation in 1517. Ngayon ay pagkaraan ng isang henerasyon o pangalawang henerasyon ay meron ng mga Puritans na minana nila yung mga pagtuturo ng reformasyon. That is why almost all Puritans to a man were reformed in their theology, and they applied Reformed theology in pastoral setting and social turmoil. Now, we need to understand this because in contrast with the Reformers were embroiled in controversy. Isang unique na pangyayari na merong lumabas sa simbahang Katoliko nung panahong iyon sapagkat nag-iisang simbahan yan na kinikilala ng lahat ng mga bansa sa Europa at ngayon may humiwalay dahilan sa doktrina na pinangunahan ni Martin Luther. So there was a necessity that many reformers were controversialists in the sense that they had to build a polemic, an argument against Roman Catholicism, and in the process, many of their theology is responsive to the theology of the Roman Catholics, and you will see that there will be some differences. Most Puritans, on the other hand, were ministers. They were now in a settled society that embraces Reformed theology more or less, and they will have more occasion to think of the pastoral application of their Reformed theology. So yung mga Reformers ay mas nasa area ng controversy, ang mga Puritans more in the area of pastoring churches, and so they had to think what Reformed theology means to the ordinary believers as they struggle with their day-to-day life. Now, let me make it clear that this is not a neat division, na all Reformers are controversialists but not pastors, and that all Puritans were pastors, not controversialists. Many Reformers, in fact, were pastors. The most well-known is John Calvin, who became the pastor of the Geneva Church, one of the churches in Geneva, and was pastor of it from 1541 until his death in 1564. So at least more than 20 years of pastoring a church, while at the same time embroiled in so much controversy. And also the Puritans themselves had their controversies to deal with, kaya hindi neat division. I'm just saying that predominantly many reformers had to be in a context of controversy, while Puritans were in the context of pastoral ministry. So let's summarize their history. Paano nagkaroon ng mga Puritans? The Puritans emerged from the Church of England in the 17th century. Church of England. At the time, the Church of England was part of the Roman Catholic Church. Just like many other churches, there were Church of Scotland, Church of Ireland, Church of this and that nation, and all those churches were just national churches under the jurisdiction of the Roman Pope. However, at the time of the 17th, or even in the 16th century, King Henry VIII, one of the most prominent figures in world history because of his impact, King Henry VIII separated the Church of England from the Roman Catholic Church. Now remember, the Church of England was under the Roman Catholic Church, and the Church of England was under the kingship of King Henry VIII, and King Henry VIII was a faithful Catholic. So this is King Henry VIII. In 1534, he proclaimed the Act of Supremacy. Ibig sabihin, supreme na yung Church of England and independent from the Roman Catholic Church. And if you ask why did he do so, was it doctrine? Was it some matter of disenchantment with the papacy, or some very theological and principled reasons? Well, it's because of a woman. And the woman's name was Anne Boleyn. Hindi Boleyn. Boleyn ang pronunciation. So he got infatuated with Anne Boleyn. The problem was he was married. He was married to Catherine of Aragon. And so he sought the Roman Catholic Church approval that he divorced his wife, Catherine of Aragon. But there were political reasons. Catherine of Aragon was the niece of the Holy Roman Empire, then Emperor King Charles. So the Pope will not do that because that will earn him a political enemy. So the Pope then, Pope Clement, refused to grant King Henry VIII that divorce. And so what did King Henry do? He did what kings can do during that time. He separated the Church of England from the Roman Catholic Church in order to marry Anne Boleyn. So the Roman Catholic Church denied Henry's petition for divorce from Catherine of Aragon. So he resorted to separation from the Roman Catholic Church. That's how it began. But then King Henry VIII did something quite right when he appointed as chief cleric, that is the chief religious leader of the Church of England, who today would be recognized as the Archbishop of Canterbury. So he appointed Thomas Cranmer. And Thomas Cranmer was a truly Reformed Christian. He was a true heir of the Reformation. And he was the author of what became, and until today, the official Articles of Faith of the Church of England, known as the 39 Articles. And in the 39 Articles, you will find statements of faith like election, predestination, and others that are thoroughly reformed. In fact, the case was that while Cranmer was truly reformed in theology, Henry VIII remained Catholic in beliefs and practice. And so sometimes there was tension. Well, one problem with Thomas Cranmer was that he was a compromiser. He compromised a lot whatever Henry VIII wanted, and he gave in. And in fact, at the very last of his life, when he was to undergo execution, when Mary was in power, he recanted because he thought that Mary will give him the some amnesty. Hindi nangyari. So ang ibig sabihin pala ni Mary, sa halip na siya ay pupugutan ng ulo, susunugin na lang. So he went back to the faith and addressed the parliament with, let's say, a courageous stance, and he died by execution. But Henry VIII remained Catholic in beliefs and practice. So after that, many Church of England ministers, now having become Reformed, wanted full Reformed application. And these ministers now came to be known as Puritans. Now this term Puritan was applied to them by their enemies because of their concern for purity in the church, which the Church of England could not be said to be. Yung mga ayaw sa kanila, yung gusto silang pintasan, hamakin, tinawag silang Puritans. Parang kung tatawagin natin ang isang tao ngayon na legalistic, ay ganun ang kanilang itinawag. Now, succession of monarchs led the Puritans to success and setbacks. So kung titingnan natin, di ko na... Where's my marker? Well, anyway, succession of monarchs. After Henry VIII died, there was Edward VI, his son, but Edward VI was an ailing teenager, and he died early. He was thoroughly Protestant in his commitment, thoroughly Reformed, and the Puritans more or less was on a high level of success in the time of Edward VI, but it was very short, maybe 6 years. After Edward, there came Mary I. Now, I want you to understand that Mary I was the daughter of Catherine of Aragon. Remember her, the wife whom Henry VIII divorced, and now she is the queen. And there was vengeance in her heart. And she wanted to uproot all Protestants from the realm of England, and she persecuted them. There were many martyrs who died under the realm of Queen Mary, and she became known in history as Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary ngayon ay yung iniinom ng mga babae. Pero galing yan dun sa katawagan kay Mary because of her persecution. After Mary the First came the long reign of Queen Elizabeth the First. The one who recently died, Queen Elizabeth II yun. Queen Elizabeth the First had a long reign from 1558 to 1603, and more or less was vacillating insofar as the Puritans were concerned. Sometimes she would give them what they wanted. At other times, she resisted what they wanted because she was really more political than religious in the sense of wanting to remain in power. So there was a kind of roller coaster experience for the Puritans during the long reign of Queen Elizabeth I. And after Queen Elizabeth I, you had King James I. And that's where we got the King James Bible. The only petition they presented to King James, the Puritans presented to King James about 1,000 petitions of changes in the church. King James agreed only on one: translate the Bible into a new kind of English translation. And the result is our King James Version. So that succession of monarchs led the Puritans to both success and setbacks. It came to a head in 1662 under King Charles II when he forced the Puritans to adopt what was known then the Common Book of Prayer. This is a collection of rituals that should be done in all churches. Otherwise, you will be punished. But the Puritans stood their ground, and in 1662, more than 2,000 Puritans chose to be ejected from the Church of England to become independent and nonconformist ministers. So you see here one very good model of step of conscience. Yung nalagay ka sa alanganin, susunod ka ba sa otoridad na may pinagagawa sa iyo na labag sa iyong konsensya? Ay karamihan sa mga Puritans ay pinili na umalis. And alam niyo, pag alis, pag lumabas ka sa Church of England, all your income, all that you are beneficiaries of from the state ng England, ay wala, tanggal sa iyo. But the Puritans chose that uncertainty of faithful and being true to one's conviction rather than be under the rules of religion that they cannot agree with. So it's a challenge to us in this sense. The Puritans did live what they were convinced was right. It was not just that they were teaching it. It was not just that they were persuading the powers of England to do their bidding. But when it came to a head, they chose to be ejected from the Church of England, and so many of them became either Presbyterians or Independents, and later on others followed the Baptist way. So during this period, many Puritans excelled in writing, besides their actual preaching, which of course we have no audio record of. We have written records of many sermons, and they are still benefiting many today. So I'll choose. I have so many Puritans that had been an influence on my life, and space will only allow me to choose 4 of them. The most that had been influential to me was John Owen. He has 16 volumes of his works now published. If you study in the Grace Ministerial Academy, pag nakagraduate ka, magkakaroon ka niyan. Bigyan ka. Kaya meron si Deacon Ike. 16 volumes of John Owen. Hindi ko alam kung binabasa niya. Pero this is a very influential Puritan. He was called the theologian of the heart. because he searches you. When he writes, although it's difficult to read him, but he searches you. He wrote books and treatises like Mortification of Sin, Apostasy, these things that are subjects that you rarely hear from modern writings. This is what John Owen excelled in. Then you have Richard Baxter na sinabi ko ngang siyang nagsulat ng inawit natin kanina. He has some problems in theology, but where Baxter excelled is in practical pastoral application of theology. No one better than Baxter when it came to practical living. His church directory, or not church, I mean Christian directory, is a collection of how to live. And he divided it in the areas of life where Christians live, in the home, in your work, in society, and in the church. And talagang hinihimay niya. Makikita mo yung kanyang, he was a man on the ground, knowing the struggles of believers. And then you have Thomas Watson, who could be considered the theologian of the Puritans in terms of his writings. He wrote a systematic theology called Body of Divinity, and then he expounded the Shorter Catechism and many other works of Thomas Watson pertaining to practical Christian living. And everybody's favorite should be John Bunyan, who wrote The Pilgrim's Progress, and make sure you read The Pilgrim's Progress, something that will truly edify you, not only as a story and allegory, but very good lessons in the Christian life. I have more to say, but space limits me to just these four, but I can say many more. There are many others more whose writings continue to excel in applied impact of Reformed theology. So now we ask the question, what sets apart the Puritans that spells their own distinctives? Anong kinaiba nila? Now, there are wrong estimations or wrong approaches to the Puritan distinctives. The first is a very common idea that the Puritans were a joyless people. And sometimes Puritan is used today to speak of someone who is always depressed or angry, and this goes back to a journalist who said something that became almost a saying about the Puritans. H.L. Mencken was a journalist in the 1920s, and he said this: Puritanism is the haunting fear that someone somewhere might be happy. Kung ganyan yung paniwala mo sa Puritanism, the impression that is left to you is these are people who are not happy, these are joyless people. But in answer to that, the facts are, and the evidences are so clear, the Puritans were known for their joyful life and company. And they often had fellowship meals like we do when we have dinner fellowship, and they enjoy these things. You can even say, somebody observed that the Puritans enjoy their beer, not the kind of beer drinking that many do today. They were not alcoholic by any means, but they enjoyed life. And they enjoyed life because they see life as done for the glory of God. So we see this in the Shorter Catechism, which is a product of the Westminster Confession, which is a product of the Puritans when they assembled to make their confession of faith. What is the Shorter Catechism? It asks the question, what is the chief end of man? And the answer is, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. You see, this is something new. In the Middle Ages, the idea of God is someone distant, someone who is transcendent, and that it takes a lot of rituals in order to even approach this God. And the Puritans really obliterated that kind of attitude by saying that God has drawn near to us through Jesus Christ and is now applying that through the Holy Spirit. Therefore, God is someone you glorify. Yes, indeed, He is transcendent in glory, but He has drawn near. And because of that, we can enjoy Him. We can have a joyful experience of God. Mayroon tayong magalakin na karanasan ng Diyos. Kaya hindi totoo na ang mga Puritans ay walang kagalakan. That's a wrong estimation of the Puritans. Another wrong approach is to say that the Puritans were legalistic in precision. Masyado silang precise, yung pinakamaliit na bagay ay dapat na eksaktong-eksakto. And again, this goes back to an exchange between an observer and one Puritan's answer. Ask about their precision. The Puritan Richard Rogers answered when someone told him, I would have liked your people, meaning you Puritans, except that you're too precise. And Richard Rogers answered, I serve a precise God. Now, many have interpreted that to mean a form of legalism. But precision in theology is what Rogers means. Precision in theology and ethics is different from legalism. In theology and ethics, you need to really be precise. Let me just give you an example. In the 4th century, when there was a debate between those who were Arians, yung mga hindi naniniwalang buong-buong Diyos si Jesucristo, at yung mga naniniwala na si Jesucristo ay buong Diyos, na uwi ang debate sa isang salita, homo ousios. It means same substance with the Father. The Son is of the same substance with the Father. Now, the Arians use the word homoi ousios, which means similar substance. Now, you can see there's only one letter difference, but it spells the difference between orthodoxy and heresy. This is orthodoxy, to believe in Jesus as the same with the Father, not lower, which the Arians said, so they used the word homoi ousios. This is just an example. I can cite many more, but you see, one letter made the difference between orthodoxy and heresy. And that's why we need to be precise when it comes to theology. And this is what Richard Rogers means when he said, I serve a precise God. Theological precision may, as I've said, spell difference between orthodoxy and heresy. But legalistic precision is about minute ritual distinctions. Now remember, the Puritans chose ejection from the Church of England precisely because of rituals that they were being asked to do, including kneeling down at the Lord's Supper and doing all kinds of rituals. They did not want that. So to accuse the Puritans of being legalistic because of ritual is unfair and not true to the facts. And the precision that they mean is legalistic precision, which the Puritans would not have accepted. This is like what Jesus said in Matthew 23:24 about the Pharisees and scribes. You blind guides training out a gnat. A gnat is like a mosquito. Yung ini-strain mo para wag makawala o wag makalusot. But swallowing a camel. Of course, this is exaggeration. You know, no man can swallow a camel. But you see, Jesus is making a distinction, or the way Jesus describes the legalism of the scribes and Pharisees, he used the smallest animal known then, a gnat, and the largest animal known in Palestine. Wala namang nakakita pa siguro ng balyena noon, but he was talking about land animals, and the camel was the largest in Palestine at that time. So he is saying, napaka-precise ninyo sa inyong ritual, making sure you don't overstep one step. They have several steps that they can make during the Sabbath, and you cannot go beyond those number of steps allowed. It's that kind of precision that Jesus denounces of the scribes and Pharisees. This generation, however, has overturned. It's very imprecise in theology, and yet you look at the way they choreograph their entertainment in their worship, and you know that they have rehearsed, so must be so diligent in their rehearsal so they can dance in a very choreographed way. Now, that's precision for entertainment, yet this is a generation that is so imprecise when it comes to theology. So it is this generation that has reversed what the Puritans were. The Puritans were very precise when it comes to theology, but they detested ritualism. Another and last wrong approach is that the Puritans were guilty of moral transgression in history. Now here, I will concede the fact that the Puritans did things according to their mindset, which we would consider today wrong. Let me suggest two of those. One, the two main blots against Puritanism in history are just indefensible. Now, there are those who will try to defend the Puritans, and I say, no, that's indefensible. One was the execution of King Charles I after the English Civil War. Nagkaroon ng English Civil War between Parliament and the monarchy. Imagine mangyari yan sa atin ngayon, mag-away ang Malacanang at ang Congress, at nagtayo ng army ang Malacanang, nagtayo ng army ang Congress, nag-civil war. That's unimaginable in our day. But back in those days, there was no standing army, no professional army. You only put up an army if there is a war or there is an imminent invasion. So nagkaroon ng civil war between the king and Parliament won under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell. And when they were victorious, they had King Charles I beheaded. For what? Well, there were many reasons, but one of the reasons is that he established back the Roman Catholic Church in England. And in those days, that was like bringing the nation down to God's condemnation. And so King Charles I was beheaded. So the Roman Catholics canonized King Charles I, and he's now one of the saints of the Catholic Church. This is a case of victor's justice. Sabi ng victor's justice, dahil nanalo ka sa labanan, ay lahat ng naging kalaban mo, iyon ang ipi-persecute. Like someone wins the election, and then whoever becomes your political opponent is subjected to persecution or prosecution, or even assassination. That's victor's justice. It's not real justice. They could have just let him go or exile him or imprison him if there was a real crime. Instead, they put him to death. There are those who will defend this. No, I cannot defend this in terms of what Baptists stand for as religious liberty. And then there's another blot. And this happened in America. The Puritans were more or less in power in Massachusetts. They began a Salem, what is now known in history as the Salem witch hunt, because of rumor. Merong bata na parang naposes or nagwala, and then para hindi siya mapagalitan ng mga magulang niya, sinisi niya ang isang slave. At yung isang slave naman, nagtuturo ng mga witches daw na naging dahilan ng kanyang impluensya sa mga bata. In the end of the Salem witch hunt, which happened in 1692, 19 people were hanged, with one exception, all women. And this is all due to rumor. In the end, the Puritans themselves put a stop to it, and the governor made an apology for what happened. Well, at least that shows that they were willing to accept their mistakes. But this was a terrible mistake that haunts until today evangelicals when people say, your kind is the kind that will hunt down people because of rumor. So everyone is a child, ang masasabi lang natin dito, everyone is a child of his generation with its blind spots. Lahat tayo naman may kamaliang minana natin sa ating henerasyon na maaring hindi natin alam ngayon dahil we are blind to the reality of those blind spots. And future generations will probably show where we are at present in error. So we should not be superior in our sense of comparing to the Puritans. Sabihin natin na mas alam natin, they were children of their generation as we are children of our generation. So what is the right? Kala ko may witch. So it is easy to cover up present transgression by blaming the past. Maraming gumagawa niyan ngayon. They are asking, for example, for reparation because of slavery in the past. So sisisihin nila ang past without looking at the faults of the present, and we should not do that. So what is the biblical standard that the Puritans excelled in exemplifying? These are the Puritan distinctives. One is Sabbath sacredness or the Lord's Day. Titingnan natin yan next week. Then there is the regulative principle of worship, that worship should only be done based on prescriptions of the scriptures, or in the case of the church, of the New Testament. Then thirdly, universal holiness in church and life. So they will not compromise when it is an issue of holiness. They were not selective. And the fourth is a sanctified heart, and particularly the danger of apostasy. I call them distinctives because these are things that they simplified and things that are rarely held today, except by those who study the scriptures and interpret them in the light of how the Puritans exemplified these distinctives. So in our study of Puritan distinctives, we will be looking at these four distinctives. For one thing, that siguro just to make an example about universal holiness, something that's unheard of today. Puritans gave much thought on holiness in dying. How can one remain holy in facing death? Oh, you see, we don't do that today because of our longevity, and we don't expect death. The Puritans lived at a time that they may die anytime. There was no medication that we have today, and given the fact that they were under persecution, they faced death as a reality. And one concern that they had was how to face death with a holiness of life. How to be holy in dying. We may be thinking of how to be holy in living. The Puritans thought of that very much, but they also thought of holiness in dying. And this is consistent with Scripture. When Paul said in Philippians 1:20, as it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage now, as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. Richard Baxter wrote a book, Dying Thoughts. At the time that he thought he was dying, he will live many more years after that book. But when he thought he was dying, he used this as instruction to others how to face death with holiness. Most people today would not even want to discuss death. And that includes their death. The Puritans discussed this quite a lot. So what is the significance of studying these Puritan distinctives? Let me suggest the following. First, it challenges current loose evangelicalism. It's a warning against moral license, characteristic of the last days. Remember, the last days refer to the period from the first coming to the second coming of Christ. We are in the last days, but so were the generations when Christ came. We are now in the last days, and Paul tells Timothy that this is a period where you will have various characteristics, like people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, etc. He's telling Timothy the things to watch so that he could be a good minister to the brethren. So by studying the Puritan distinctives, you are enabled to see the very things that are characteristic of our generation. Second is that it demonstrates doctrinal practical faith. The Puritans excelled in applying doctrine to their lives. They did not just live as a formula, these are the steps to successful living. These are the steps for a good marriage. These are the steps for finding your love life, whatever. It's always for them doctrine first. What's the doctrine and how does that apply to life? So model of doctrinal purity and ethical integrity, and the scriptures encourage us to look at others who are good examples of this application of doctrine to life. And finally, it alerts discernment of wrong, even in people we admire. That's why I critiqued the beheading of King Charles I and the Salem witch hunt, because as much as I admire the Puritans, we must not be blind to where they were wrong. And there were things that they were wrong, so there must be readiness to correct even those who are respected. That's an example, or that's a challenge that the Puritans posed to us. As Paul said, when he came to Antioch, he withstood Peter. He blamed him to his face because of misconduct. And definitely there was respect between them, but when there was a grievous sin, that must be corrected. So in conclusion, why do we study the Puritans? Because the Bible encourages us to look at models. There are those who will say, oh, I only look to Christ. That sounds pious, but that's not scriptural. Yes, we look to Christ ultimately, but Christ has been, or God has been so good in providing models to us, and there are models in history. And among them, I propose to study is the Puritan period. As Paul said in Philippians 3:17, join with others in following my example, brothers, and take note of those who live according to the pattern we gave you. So we are to be alert to models that God has given to us, including models in history. And as far as model of living is concerned, applying doctrine, I say that I cannot find a period better than the Puritans. So follow the lives of believers who had been exemplary in holiness, and that I hope is what we will do in this section of our study of our distinctives, to study holiness as lived in the Puritans. So any question or any thought like to raise, perhaps testimony if you had been a reader of the Puritan books, how you had benefited, seen.
Thank you, Pastor, for the lesson. I have two questions. Yeah, I benefit a lot from the Puritan writings when we were young. Actually, my second question is related to that, but my first question is on what brought the Puritans to this guilt of moral transgression. What could have brought them to those two instances of the Salem witch hunt and the beheading of King Charles I? That's the first question. What made wrong in their doctrine or in their thinking that led to committing such guilt? And then the second question is on our history, Pastor, being reflective of our history. We began as a Fundamental Baptist Church, and then we became Puritan Baptist Church, and then now we are a Grace Baptist Church. So I was thinking about the progress and the development of our doctrinal positioning. Parang nauna yung Puritan before our Reform doctrines. But my question actually focused on the liberty of conscience, because as I was saying, yung bata pa tayo, we're very strict. When we were Fundamental Baptists, the clothes we wear, we don't even watch movies, and we don't go to certain events. But when we became Puritan Baptist Church, I think there's the loosening because of the liberty of conscience, I would say. Tama po ba yung ganong reflection na we mature in our understanding of the liberty of conscience when we became Puritan Baptist? So those two questions. Thank you.
Why did the beheading of Charles I happened and the witch hunt of Salem happened? You must put yourself, there's a time machine that brings you back to, at least mentally, brings you back to the 17th century. It was a sacerdotal society. Sacerdotalism means a society defined by religion. The state defines what religion the state should be in or should profess. So if you violate or oppose that religious identity, you are not just opposing the religion, but the state. You become an enemy of the state. And the Puritans inherited that mindset. For a nation to be united, it must be united under one religion. And at the time, the reason why there was a civil war was because Charles I was imposing Roman Catholicism on Protestant England. And so what they did at the end of the Civil War in 1649 was to have no rallying point for those who were followers of Charles I. So they eliminated him. Again, I disagree strongly and totally, but I'm trying to empathize with their situation. That's the way their thinking went. Na para maiwas mo ang bansa sa salot ng Roman Catholicism, and they thought of Roman Catholicism as a religious plague. And so they had to eliminate the head of it at that time was King Charles I. Again, that's what happened. They were consistent with their mindset, but it was wrong. And the same is true with the Salem witch hunt. It was a time that there was so much superstition about demonic activities, and that included belief in the power of witches. Oh, witches are real. There's even an organization of witches in the United States and even in Europe. So witches are not mythical. They are real. But in the way it was believed in the 17th century, there was so much superstition na parang nanood ka ng Bewitched, na may kapangyarihan talaga sila ng mga spells, etc. And so they did what they did in Salem, but later on they confessed their sin, led by the governor at the time. So we need to understand the mindset of that period. As to the history of our church, ang hirap pag yung nagtatanong ay kasabayan mo mula nung umpisa. So yes, we were fundamental in identity because I was sent by a fundamental Baptist church. Ayoko nang ungkatin dahil pero because of that, out of respect, we identified with some of the values of that fundamentalist conviction. But if you will remember, a year later, I resigned from the church, and I was not a pastor of the church for, I think, 2 hours, because the church then met on their own to decide to be independent. No, it's not like King Henry VIII deciding to make the Church of England independent of the Roman Catholic Church. The church decided to be independent of the sending church, a fundamentalist church, so we changed our name to what in the first year of the church has become more or less a source of teaching in the church, the Puritan writings, which at the time were just beginning to emerge. And so we called ourselves Puritan Baptist Church. Then what changed was because we were going outside the campus and having our meeting place in a more community setting. So it's no longer the campus situation, and nobody might understand that title Puritan. They may mistake it for a brand of socks or whatever clothing. So we decided to change, and that change does not mean that we are departing from Puritanism, but rather to make ourselves more identifiable to the community. So we changed to Grace Baptist Church. And yes, there's a loosening from fundamentalism, because one of the doctrines we discovered was Christian liberty. I also was growing. I was pastor of this church when I was 20 years old. So I was very young then, and I also was growing, and I hope I'm still growing. One of the early doctrines that led us to a surge of growth is Christian liberty and liberty of conscience. I hope that answers the question. Any other question or thoughts? Problema kayo sa mga Puritans, or maybe a testimony of how the Puritans had helped you. You would like to know before we proceed next week, God willing, to the specific distinctives. Deacon Ian.
Pastor, what differentiates yung mga Puritan? For example, sina Jonathan Edwards, why is he not considered one? Also, Pastor, on a practical note, ano ba yung mga suggestion for us to start in reading or exploring more sa mga Puritan writings? Parang challenge din talaga, Pastor, yung language. Parang, although one time, parang na-try ko na with ChatGPT, parang papa-translate ko sa kanya into a more readable version. It helped naman, Pastor, parang mas mabilis maunawaan. Pero pag original na writing, parang hirap.
Yeah, totoo yun. Why is not Jonathan Edwards considered a Puritan? Well, some will consider him a Puritan, but in terms of doctrines. Historically, he cannot be considered a Puritan because, as we saw, the Puritans emerged from the Church of England. Sila yung mga humiwalay sa Church of England, and Jonathan Edwards was from the very beginning an independent church. At marami sa Amerika yung mga Puritans na nag-migrate because they were avoiding persecution in Europe, in England in particular, and went to America and established what they called then New England. Doon naging mga independent churches sila. Dala-dala pa rin nila yung kanilang Puritan distinctives, but then by the second generation, and Jonathan Edwards would be about the third generation from the original Puritans, so he would not be considered a Puritan historically, but in terms of his beliefs and practices, he still is considered by many. In fact, others would call him the last of the Puritans. But historically, not the case. And yung merong ministry ang ilang publications ngayon na sinisimplify ang mga Puritan books. Dahil nga mahirap yung language yung iba. John Owen especially, kung mag-outline siya, ay may main point and then sub-point and then sub-sub-point and sub-sub-sub-sub-point. At siguro, habang nagsusulat siya, ay nag-lunch muna siya. Pagbalik niya ay hindi na rin niya alam kung nasa na siya. Minsan yung outline niya ay broken. But he's very logical, and yet his English is cluttered. And that's the way people would use English at that time. So mahirap siyang basahin. Ang nakita kong one secret, if you understand English, is read by clauses. Hindi mo basahin yung buong sentence, read by clause. But there are translations, or not translations, but simplifications of these materials. For example, the death of death in the death of Christ is the best defense of what we call particular redemption by John Owen. But you read it and you'll begin to feel yours dying a slow death. So, may nag-translate yan o nag-simplify niyan, life by his death, ang pamagat nun ngayon. At may ganyang ministry, you can look at those simplification of Puritan writings. But other Puritans, you can read straightforward. John Flavel is one of the best. It's very simplified. Parang nagbabasa ka rin ng modern English when you read John Flavel, and it's very good in many of his writings. So kung magbabasa kayo, begin with Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, because you will surely enjoy it besides learning from it. And then from there, I'll point you to John Flavel. Read his The Bruised Reed. It's a sermon on Matthew 12:28 that a broken reed, or in other translations, a bruised reed he will not break. And a simmering fire he will not quench. And he is talking about the tenderness of Christ towards those who are broken in their Christian life. So, yun, Bunyan, Flavel. Begin with those, and you'll begin your journey in reading the Puritans. Don't begin with Owen, I suggest, unless you're aspiring to be a theologian. Begin with Bunyan and Flavel. Your thoughts? Itate.
Yung magandang umaga. Ang Puritan distinctive apply to individuals or to a church. Parang kasi baka kapares ng naging experience ng mga Puritans in the olden times, meron sa mga hindi nagsusupport ng kanilang pananampalataya o paniniwala tungkol sa pagiging Puritan.
Well, the Puritans were heavily emphatic on church life. In fact, So their distinctives would not just be individual, but their distinctives would apply to the various churches that they ministered. Halimbawa, si Richard Baxter na na-mention natin kanina, at yung author ng ating hymn kanina ay minister sa Kidderminster in England, and he applied Puritan distinctives sa kanyang church. John Bunyan was a pastor in Bedford in England, and he also applied this to the church. So pag sinabi natin Puritan distinctives, they lived it individually, but they corporately identified their distinctives in the church. Other thoughts, questions, or yes, Ate Emma?
Even when I was young in the Reformed faith, sabi ko, whenever I hear the word Puritan, sabi ko, means this, they have a higher standard of holiness. And that means, hirap. Mas mahirap maging member dyan because it's harder. But as I went along with this Reformed theology, ito rin pala yung kwan natin, Pastor, no? Yung why we have the sacredness of the Sabbath and we go to church morning, afternoon. Because when I was new also here, although I came from another Reformed church, morning lang kami. Pagdating ko dito, morning, afternoon. So sabi ko nga, mas mahirap. But I have greatly benefited from all of those changes. And ito ngang regulative principle of worship then, hymns, but now I see the unity of everything so that yung preaching, yung songs are all aligned. So ngayon ko lang talaga na-appreciate. And I'm also listening to this podcast by Steve Lawson, Man Who Rocked the World. He was talking about great from church history. Mas lalo kong na-appreciate. Sabi ko, nakatuwa naman, ano. And I'm really inspired at this point in my Christian life na thank you, Lord, for leading me to a church. Yun nga, yung distinctives natin. Na-appreciate ko talaga yung series mo, Pastor, about our siguro ang question ko lang, kasi now holding on to these higher standards of holiness, parang ang hirap mo ngayon dalhin yung iba mong family members. So hard to convince them that you're in the right and they need to be in the right and they are in the wrong. So yun din yung aking dilemma at this point. While I am appreciating all of these things that I'm learning, sabi ko, sayang, other people find it hard to appreciate. Kasi sa tingin nila, ay, baka lumampas ka sa langit, baka sobra-sobra na yung holiness mo. Yun lang, Pastor.
Okay, salamat po. Never tayong susobra sa holiness. Yan po yung Roman Catholic doctrine ng supererogation. So we do not believe that we can ever attain to sufficient holiness. That is why the Puritans were always at the quest of more holiness. And in order to convince others and even yourself, I do what the Puritans said. The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Applying that to the Sabbath, to the Lord's Day, enjoy the Lord's Day. And though that means also some self-denial and discipline to undertake, pero have the joy. After all, it's not the Lord's morning, it's the Lord's day. Kaya tandaan natin ang sinabi ng Panginoong Hesus, Mark 2:27, man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for man. Sa ikabubuti, ikapapakinabang ng tao. Therefore, he said, the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. So learn to enjoy the things that we do on the Lord's Day and in your Christian life. So kahit na may mga difficulties, and that includes the Puritans exemplified, as I've said, yung kanilang thought on holiness in dying, that's because of their more general and broader concern to be holy in affliction, in suffering. And they had many sufferings. Yung parang kinurot lang tayo ay magko-complain na tayo. These people suffered. John Owen outlived his 11 children. Can you imagine that? And I can tell you more. But they were people who sought to glorify God even in their suffering. So that's an example for us.
Nabanggit kasi yung tungkol sa Sabbath and ayun nga, and we understand that children are included dito sa command na ito about the Sabbath. I remember early on in our struggle to practice what is right when it comes to children in church. There were comments like, paano ma-enjoy ng mga bata ang Sabbath? Because syempre iba yung kanilang idea ng enjoy. So, and of course there was much discussion regarding this. So yun pa rin siguro hanggang ngayon. I guess that would be a never-ending question. What to do or yun nga, regarding the children on a Sabbath in the church.
Well, our concern for our children is not that they enjoy the Sabbath, because they will not, because they are totally depraved. And we do not expect them to enjoy the Sabbath. Now, do not make them enjoy the Sabbath by letting them do things in the church that should not be done. So yung iba, ang trato sa mga bata ay istorbo sa worship to. So bigyan ko na lang ng coloring book. Ngayon, naging sophisticated na, gadget na ang binibigay sa mga bata para lang wag manggulo, may sarili silang inaasikaso. That's not the way the Puritans did it. And of course, they had no gadget to give to their children. But they believed strongly that worship in the church includes the whole family, including children, and that for the children, their contribution or their experience of worship is from the very young to be still and quiet. Now, can parents impose that on their children, at least for 2 hours or so, to be still and quiet? That's part of discipline. So, wag tayong mabahala na hindi nag-e-enjoy at the moment yung bata, because we don't expect, even unbelievers who are adult, we do not expect them to enjoy the Sabbath because they're totally dependent until they come to Christ. That's the only time that there is the potential to enjoy the Lord's Day. We need to discipline instead. Last two. Hindi ko niya.
Pastor, share ko lang, my first encounter with Puritans were back, not in church, in English 2, literature. May mga short stories kami doon. Ang natatandaan ko yung Young Goodman Brown, Nathaniel Hawthorne. I think siya rin author ng Scarlet Letter. I think most of his writings ay may about the Puritans. I'm not sure kung ano yung position niya where he para labeling them as parang very strict and hypocrite. But siguro ang take away ko dun is they are kumbaga in society, they are recognized as they are parang really their lives are embodiment of what a Christian life should be. So even I think si Hawthorne is not a Christian, but he recognizes these believers, and may kumbaga hindi sila parang label lang na Christian, but they have really an impact dun sa society and how they conduct their lives.
Yes, Hawthorne recognized that, but also Hawthorne was a critic of the Puritans, and you see that in the Scarlet Letter. The Scarlet Letter is red letter A, stands for adultery, where the leading character was forced to wear with an A on her garment to say that she has been guilty of adultery, as a warning to all. We don't discipline that way. But you see how, in some ways, Hawthorne has caricatured the Puritans, but at the same time, he recognized their preeminence in Christian belief. Rebecca?
Good morning po, Pastor. Very often po, when interacting with whether it be non-believers or believers from a different, there can be negative connotations attached to labeling. For example, oh, I'm Calvinist, or I'm Puritan, or I'm Reformed Baptist, ganun, ganun. Because of history of how do we rectify this? Like, how do we help to dissolve these incorrect impression, and how do we improve this testimony as Reformed Baptists?
I will say I'm a good Baptist. We have to live with it. When you label yourself, it's either you live without a label, which is worse, I would say, worse than having a label and have to live with the connotations to others of that label. Why? Because by having a label of yourself rather than explaining and expounding all your beliefs that distinguish you from others, you just say, I'm a Reformed Baptist. And to those who understand, they will know in what way to distinguish you. Or when you say, I don't use it a lot myself, but when you say, I'm a Calvinist, or I'm this particular, yun ding salitang Trinity, for example, instead of explaining everything that is the substance of the Trinitarian formula, you have the word Trinity to summarize it as a label. Parang meron kang malaking document sa iyong computer. How do you save it? You use a file name. Now, your file name, let's say Rebecca G. Your file name may not even occur in the document, and yet it saves the whole cluster of your document. Ganun yung Trinity. Maraming magsasabi, wala sa Bible ang Trinity. At wala. Pero yung kinakatawan niya is just a file name for the whole cluster of doctrines that identify us as believers in the Trinity. So we have to live with the connotations of the label we use, but the alternative is worse. Okay, so beginning next week, God willing, we will look at one of these distinctives, which is the sacredness of the Sabbath or the Lord's Day. Let's close in prayer. Dakila naming Diyos, sa aming mahabaging Ama, nagpapasalamat kami sa pagbabalik gunita namin sa Puritans ng kanilang kapanahunan, at bagamat may mga mantsa sa kanilang naging kasaysayan, ay hindi sapat ito upang kaligtaan namin ang kanilang mga kinabubukod na mga paniniwala at mga pamumuhay. We pray that we may learn as we go along this study, learn from the distinctives that excelled the Puritans in their doctrine and example, in their concern to be holy in all areas of life, even in the area of suffering, and ultimately in facing death. So we ask, Lord, that we may learn much without becoming blind to their flaws, for like all of us, they had their flaws. Yet you have been so good to give us an excellent model for us to follow in the life of holiness. We pray that we may be humble to do so, and we give you back, as the concern of the Puritans, the glory that we may learn to enjoy you because of your truth. So be with us. In Jesus' name we pray all these things. Amen.